All right, everybody, this video is about the Ozark Highlands Trail. I am going to be through hiking it westbound. And so what I'm doing is the original, what we call it, the traditional Boston Mountains segment. And it goes from Lake Fort Smith State Park to Woolham, Arkansas. And that is 164 miles. Now, there is an add-on to this trail that they're still working on making the trail bed. So right now it's kind of a like a bushwhack. You just follow the blazes, and that one goes from Woolham to Matinee Knob in Norfolk, and that makes the entire length of the trail 254 miles long. So what we're planning on doing is, if it doesn't have any rain or anything that makes the buffalo come up too high, we're going to start at Woolham and cross the buffalo. Now, if there's been rain or something and the buffalo is come up too high, our plan was to go to Tyler Bend State Park and start from there, and that would add 15 miles onto the trail. Luckily, there was no rain and we are able to cross the buffalo. I want to be totally transparent here. I have never hiked this trail before. Unlike the other trails I've done the how-to videos on, where I hike it, then I research it, then I hike it again, that's not feasible with this length of a trail. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, because I'm going to be hiking along, and as I see things that I feel like you need to know, I'm going to put them on the video. And there's also some history stuff and some geology stuff that I found in research prior to doing this hike. Okay, now let's go get to it. Come on, let's go. All right, it's time to do another hike, and this one is the Ozark Highlands Trail. We are going to be hiking the trail westbound, and of course, I got Camelback. So we're going to be hiking the trail westbound, which means we are going to start by crossing the buffalo. And somewhere on the trail had recommended that because it keeps us from having the worry of getting to the very end of the trail and not being able to cross. If you hike straight down that way, and there's a little bit of a path, you can kind of see where Yancey is down there. So this is a shelf where the off-roaders come. They go doo-doo down this road, and then they cross on this shallow gravel bar right there. And then what you'll do is you'll cross there, and then you'll hike doo-doo-doo back over here, and then up there is where you're going to find the trail. We hope. We're going to go ahead and get crossing, and once we start walking, we'll kind of talk about what our plan is. Okay, see you on the other side. All right, so we made it across, and the water was moving pretty quick, so we really had to be careful with our steps and make sure that we had a good stab with our poles before we continued. It took a little while to get across going that slow, but it was a much safer way to do it, and that water was pushing pretty hard. So right now, the river level, we checked this at the St. Joe gauge for the Buffalo River, and I'm going to put a link to that in the video description. But when we crossed here at the shallower area that I talked about earlier, and 5 foot 3 inches on the St. Joe gauge made the water just about up to my boobs on me, and I'm 5 foot tall. And Jessica, who is, how tall are you?
5'7".
5'7", is just about up to her belly button. Yeah, it was a thing. I don't feel like doing that thing again. All right, let's get on down the trail and see how far we can get before either that storm moves in, because we can hear the thunder, or till it starts getting dark enough that we want to put down camp. All right, we're going to hike. Where's the trail? Do you know where the trail is?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, we don't know where the trail is.
No,
we're going to find the trail, then we're going to hike. Bye. So this guy I mentioned is that people will go, they're overlanders over this. So that's why this area is shallower. This guy is going to do it. He's got that. We saw he does have a snorkel. And he's got it. Okay, so once you get across the river, you're going to look to your right and you'll see a dirt road up ahead. Right there. Boop. That's where you're going. That's the trail. Yeah. It's lightning. So if you get a late start, be aware that as you're hiking down this road, it doesn't offer much as far as places to put down a tent. And of course, it's raining and thundering, so like, well, when we get to the barn, that'll be good. Y'all, the barn is in bad shape. It's leaning really hard. So, like, it's leaning so hard that in this storm, we do not feel comfortable sleeping under this thing. Yeah, it doesn't look good. Is that hail? Is that hail?
Sounds like it.
It might just be this barn about ready to go down. Anyway, this is right about 3 miles in as far as westbound goes. Yeah, we're not staying under that thing. So I don't know if we're going to keep hiking and look for something, but right now, I mean, it's nice and flat here, but everything is very rocky. What did you see over there?
It's fairly decent. It's not as briary.
Okay.
It's not really flat. It's kind of ruddy, but it's not rocky.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so we have decided to keep hiking. She did find a place that wouldn't be ideal, but it's out in a field, and you know, it's not the safest thing to be out in the field during a lightning storm. So we decided we're just going to keep hiking and look for something better. Whew, we're started right off with an adventure, huh? Cool thing about night hiking. Look how cool he is. Okay, buddy, move for the camera. He's like, I'm just a stick. Look, he doesn't want to move.
He's playing dead.
He's playing dead. Anyway, cool little salamander. Good morning. So last night we hiked 5 miles in the dark, in the rain, with lightning and everything. We just couldn't find a place to put down camp. So we ended up making it 5 miles in to this beautiful campsite right here. And I'm working on getting my hammock all put away and my tarp put away and everything. I'm just about ready to load everything up. And then we'll be on our way, hoping for about 16 miles today. So I think that'll be a good number. We got 12 hours of daylight now, so that's going to make it really easy. We might even get a little bit more. This is so beautiful. I'm finally getting a chance to see the beauty of this place now that we're not hiking in the dark. We're over here at this really pretty creek, and we saw all these bones. Could you put your stick next to one to show how big they are? So that's how big they are. They're really big bones. We were thinking maybe deer, but they seem too big for that. It's maybe like, almost like cattle. Is that a backbone right here?
Because it's huge vertebrae.
Yeah. Well, cattle's got big vertebrae too.
Yeah.
But this is a vertebrae.
Yeah.
Or is it skull? Look at the sutures. Or does vertebrae have sutures too?
No. It might be a skull.
So then that would be horns
Yeah.
where my hands are.
Mm-hmm.
So bear, you think? No, bear doesn't have horns. That was a dumb question. Look, it's got horns. That's probably a bear then.
Yeah.
It's the great horned bear.
These are like the little mastoid.
Yep, I think cattle.
How do we get out here today?
Well, if I know, but it didn't do very well. Yeah,
Obviously.
so
They just laid down right there and
died.
somebody, or it was somewhere else and coyotes dragged them over there.
Ah, yeah.
The water source.
All right. So we think that was actually cattle. And we were kind of thinking, gosh, how did cattle get all the way out here? But you hike a ways that you don't realize just how close you are to homesteads. There's a lot of homesteads back in here. In fact, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, there were a lot of homesteads here. And as you're hiking, you'll see a lot of rock walls. I almost got off the trail. You'll see a lot of these old rock walls just kind of sitting there because a lot of people lived back in here in the day, and they did a lot of farming here, had cattle. Here's our shuttle driver, Yancey, with some more information about this.
Before the Forest Service bought all the land back, this was all homesteaded land, all through the National Forest. That's why you see rock stack walls and daffodils out on the trail. And even over, like Little Mulberry and all that, that was a bustling little area. It had a mill and a plant where they made spokes for wagon wheels. And anyways, once the Forest Service bought it all back, then those places just went abandoned. But with the rock walls and the chimneys, that's just kind of a testament to how hard they worked, and how long that stuff lasted. So since it's still there.
So one of the cool things about this area is it's what we call tarp cartography. It's what's called karst topography. And what that means is that there's this giant network of caves and underground waterways below us. There's over 300 caves, individual caves have been identified, and there are at least 60 different species that live down there, and the karst critters are going to be things like salamanders and bats and stuff like that. So they live down in there, and there's over 60 different species that are found nowhere else on Earth but right here under where we're walking. They have also 7 of those are endangered species. They're on the list, and some of those are like the Indiana bats, the gray bats, stuff like that. So they're also very, very susceptible to any kind of like chemical runoff from metropolitan areas. So we really try and protect the area around here. Basically underneath us, what we have is, like I said, it's a network of caves and waterways. And what happens is the water, as it's gone under there for hundreds of millions of years, is worn through the limestone and dolomite to where it's created all these waterways. And the ones that used to be filled with water and are called caves. And the ones that are still filled with water are springs. So that's why you can get to the top of a mountain and see water still coming out in a whole lot of places around here, because they're coming from those underground caves. So up here on the surface, what that means for us is we'll see caves that are now exposed. We'll see giant sinkholes. Some are prehistoric sinkholes. We passed one earlier today. And we'll also see losing streams. And what a losing stream is, it's when a stream's going down the hill, but there's a place where the ground is broken through into one of those caves, and boop, all the water just goes there. So it goes away for no reason. And there's also what's called a gaining stream. And a gaining stream is where you have the water's filled to the very top of the cave, and it's got that porous limestone, so the water is leaching up to the surface. So you'll have a stream that's trickling down, and all of a sudden it becomes a big stream for no reason at all. When the caves are exposed, we'll get some pictures of those. A lot of times the locals will come in there and they'll trash the caves. And the caves are so sensitive that if they get any kind of damage to them, it's going to last for generations. In fact, it lasts so long that you can still see evidence of when the prehistoric people were living in this area and living in those caves. So it's really neat, but to see their stuff, and maybe hundreds of years from now, they'll be thinking it's neat to see our stuff, but I really don't think they're going to care about all the beer cans and stuff in there. They'll probably just say we're a bunch of junkers. Anyway, so it makes for some really cool topography. Sometimes you'll be walking along and you'll be able to feel that the ground is hollow. congratulations for Camelback. This completes the entire trail for her. Yeah! And now we're gonna go get some water and camp. So there's a reason why when you watch people's videos, it shows all this nice, beautiful, pretty trail, and it just looks like it's gonna be so great. And I haven't been filming the uphills either, but some of them are pretty steep. And like just the grade of the trail is pretty steep and they just go up and up. So obviously that's not a time I'm going to take my camera out, but man, it's been a lot of work. So I just don't want any of these videos to seem like, oh, this is just a nice little walk in the park, because it's really not. We did 16 miles yesterday and stayed at Richland Creek campground, which was pretty cool. It has trash cans, pit toilet. There was no potable water, but just grab water from the creek after you cross the bridge, or no, before you when you cross the bridge, if you're going eastbound. Like I said, we're going westbound, so it was after we crossed the bridge. Yeah, so we've just done a lot of climbing today, it seems. Our pace is running a little bit behind where we'd like to be. We're stopping and getting some water right now, but yeah, anyway, I just wanted to say that and let you guys know that there is a lot of steep ups even when people's videos don't show it. Welcome to Moore Camp. This building behind me is part of the ruins of this entire site, which was a CCC camp. And if you're not familiar with what CCC is, it was a program put in place by President Roosevelt, and it was during the Depression to give young men a way to make a wage. And what they did is they built roads around here, bridges, and they built a lot of the buildings that we see now at state parks. This place was in use during 1933 to 1937. And they were Company 745 F24, and F stands for Forest Service Project. So there's quite a few things to see around here, so we've decided to take a lunch break, as Camelback is doing. And we're going to go look around and check this place out. So first, this right here. I couldn't find any definite information on what this was. But, and there was something going around from some other guy's video. I just want to put that to bed. By the time it was 1933, 23,000 German and Italian POWs were brought to CCC camps that were no longer in use. And they were held there. And they were also used to help build some of the state parks and stuff. So I found that interesting because at Lake Catherine, where I stayed a little bit ago, the German POWs built a lot of those buildings there. So since they did use a lot of these CCC camps for holding the POWs, I guess some information someone got mixed up and said that POWs were kept here. I did a lot of digging and a lot of looking around, and in the process of that, I eventually landed on a list of every single place, every single CCC camp that was used as a POW camp, and Camp Moore, or Moore Camp, was not on it. So POWs were never held here. There was a guy who did a video and he was saying that this, he was pretty sure was the holding cell where they held the prisoners, but when they're bringing 23,000 POWs into Arkansas, I think they're going to need a building bigger than this if it was for POWs. But I never could find anything specific saying what this building was for, but it was not for holding POWs. If you go inside, you can see a lot of, stuff like some charcoal there. It looks like it's been used by other people. But looking at the construction of this thing, with the thick concrete ceiling, the long build of it, and this structure right here that looks like whatever, was not part of this. Someone's been building this. I've seen this in some other videos that was not built up quite this high, so someone else is doing that. But just looking at the construction with the concrete ceiling, and it's a low ceiling, tells me that this was most likely a powder magazine, which means it's a building where they kept the explosive powder for the work they were doing on building the roads and everything. They would have kept the powder in here if this was a powder magazine, and there would have been a separate smaller building where they would have kept the blasting caps. So, because obviously you don't want to store the blasting caps and the powder all in the same place. But same thing, like with this one small window on this end, and then on the other end, you can see the remains of another small window over there, is very, very typical of a powder magazine back then. Anyway, there's a bit more to see with this camp, so when we're done eating, we're gonna go explore around a little bit and check it out. I'm kind of excited to see it because there's a lot of really cool history here. There's something else I forgot to say. I was just talking to Camelback, and another reason that I think this was a powder magazine is because of how sturdy it was built. When we go look around at the rest of this place, you'll see some like low walls, and they're just basic foundations of the buildings have crumbled, but this thing's still standing because it was built very sturdy to contain an explosion in case one was to happen. Now, I told you that. Now, look at some flowers. So we saw how far back that building goes, right? Not very far inside that little room. Check out the side of this place. It's really big. It's really long. So anyway, there was a corner piece missing from the building, and I peeked in there and it's nothing but more rocks just piled in there. So my guess, and this also kind of solidifies my guess of this being a powder magazine, is that it was done so that if the powder was to explode, that all the rocks and everything there would direct the blast forward and away from camp, where all the people are. That is a guess. I didn't find that information anywhere, and I don't, it's just, an educated guess. Let's go look around a little bit more. Get it? More, because it's more camp. So we found this building. I don't know what it is. This in between, and there's a building half there and a building half there, and it's reinforced with rebar. And then looking inside here, it's a bunch of pillars. I kind of think this might be a cistern of some type. I bet you this might be a water storage cistern. Look at this cool chimney. Would you go over by it so people can see how big it is? Yeah, this thing is huge. So, I don't think it's an outdoor chimney of anything. Because if you look up there towards the top, you'll see some flashing. Like there used to be roof there. And you can see how it's finished out at the top. But this area between like the mantle and that flashing is not finished. I'm guessing there was a place built around here. I'm seeing pieces of like what looks like was foundation at one time. I'm thinking this may have been like a place where like they would all get together, maybe like where they would all eat or something, and the fireplace was to keep them warm. That's cool. Yeah, I'm seeing more ruins over here. Some blocks from what looked like it was from a building at one time. Oh, so that weird guy on that video that said this was a POW camp, which by the way, again, is incorrect. In fact, POWs started coming into Arkansas in 1933, but this place was in use between 1933 and 1937. It was not an abandoned camp. So, there's no reason POWs would have been here. I think that guy's belief that there were POWs here and they died here probably was what was leading him to feel spooky. This would actually be a really nice place to camp. And if you, did you hear something over there?
Yeah, sounded like a reverse.
Yeah. Weird. Right, when I'm talking about this place doesn't sound spooky, you're like, what was that? Yeah, so there's This would be a really nice place to camp. There's a really big fire pit, and there's even some lawn chairs sitting over there. There's some camp chairs. Anyway, we're gonna press on. Good morning. So they camped at this campsite last night up on top of a hill. The one we were going to wasn't that great, and it really didn't have any good trees. It wasn't super level, so we decided to just keep hiking. And we got up here on top of this hill, and it was really nice up here. I don't know if you can see the sunrise here behind me. Camelback stayed right here on that little spot. And then I stayed up there between those two trees. And we didn't hear a sound all night. But I mean, seriously, I was so tired, an elephant probably could have come walking around and I wouldn't have noticed. Anyway, we're about ready to start hiking. It's just a little bit past 7 a.m. And I got some bad news last night. I was talking with my husband on the inReach, and there's rain on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and those were going to be my last days. So 3 days of rain, unless it's just a little bit of rain, but I kind of doubt it. He's going to keep an eye on the forecast for me, but I may have to stop at Lick Branch where my car is. So anyway, that's just how it goes, but keeping my fingers crossed that doesn't happen and I can still finish this thing. Okay, so at each trailhead, you're going to see a trail register. And what this is it's going to ask for the date, your name, and trail names are okay. A lot of people put their own name. It's going to ask where you're headed, and it's going to ask for where you're from. And it's a good idea to do this because if for some reason you go missing, the first thing they're going to come and do is check this trail register and see where the last place you came through was at, so they know where to start looking for you. And it looks just like this. So please stop and do that. And they're in these metal boxes right here. You just lift the lid, put the pencil back, please. They're not free for taking. And then you hike on your way. After you sign the trail register, you're going to go that way on the Ozark Highlands Trail. Or if you cached a resupply at Fairview Campground, see that blue blaze? That takes you to it. And then you'll go like not even 50 feet and you'll get to the campground. So we had a little error and we didn't realize that this was the campground right here. And we do have a resupply here. And we ended up getting a little bit down the trail before we realized that it's not, that the campground was back behind us. So we had to turn around and come back up the hill a bit. So I just want to make sure to point this out to save any of you from making the same error we did. Anyway, here's the campground. And also another thing that's a little bit deceiving, when you look at far out, at the very bottom it shows a junction called Campground Junction. When you click on it, and that was not the campground junction. The campground junction is up here at the top of the hill by the highway. It's coffee time. We're running about 5 miles behind due to our little blunder with the food cache yesterday and some really rocky terrain that was a little bit hard to navigate. So looking at the far out, it says that the Cedar Creek campsite is really beautiful, and that was where I was planning to camp, but we're about 5 miles behind. So if the terrain is good and not super rocky, maybe we could pull off a 20-mile day and still get to stay there. But if we do, it's going to be dog tired. Oh yeah, baby. Good morning. All right, so we started hiking just at first light, and we've got a nice jump on the day. We're going to try for a 20 to put us back to where we should be on mileage. And if that doesn't work and we only get to like 18, it still gives us a 2-mile jump or fix on getting back to where we should be. So far today it's been a really nice path. Hasn't been really rough stepping. Yesterday was a lot of really rocky stuff. And you're going past all these boulders with dead leaves in between, so you're not sure what the footing's like down there. Sometimes it was a little bit hard to tell where the trail was. You have to stop and really search for a blaze. It reminded me a lot of Section 1 on the Washita Trail. So hopefully we don't have much of that today. If we don't, that'll really help us, because this has just been some real mild flat hiking. Anyway, we are in the Hurricane Creek wilderness now, and we should here within the next half mile or so be crossing Hurricane Creek, one of several crossings. So it'll be a wet crossing, and when we're done, I will let you know how it went. But I'll see you over there before we cross. Hurricane Creek is one of the ones that can get really, really bad, and you won't be able to cross it. So this is the bypass, and this is a sign if you're coming westbound, and you will see it marked in blue blazes. So that's how you get around if you're not able to cross the river because it's too high. Or river. I keep saying river. They're really wide and everything. Like, they look like a river, but they're a creek. So the one we're going to cross is Hurricane Creek, not Hurricane River, even though it's really wide like a river. Let's go take a look at it. It's a wet one. You're not going to rock hop this baby. All right, we're on the other side, and it wasn't bad. It didn't even come up to my knees. So there's these two blondes, and they're walking along, and they get to a place where they're trying to figure out how to get across the river. And then they see another blonde on the other side of the river, and they holler out to her. They say, "Hey, how'd you get to the other side?" And the other blonde hollers back, "You're on the other side." We're up here on top of this mountain, and if you look, you'll see just how, oh, there's my finger, just how flat it is. That's because hundreds of millions of years ago, when most of the United States was underwater, this part was above water. And over time, again, hundreds of millions of years, has been like these crevices of water eroding, and then the rivers, more water erosion, and it left us with this. But because this was all one big flat dome-shaped plateau at one time, we're up very high. So even when we're down low, we're still actually up pretty high. And that's why this is called the Ozark Highlands Trail. It's because we're up in the highlands. Okay, now it's time to start hiking. Geology time over. We are at our second crossing of the Hurricane Creek. So this second crossing for us is the deepest. So the first one we did was not so deep. And again, I feel like it is very dishonest that they call this a creek. I mean, this looks like a river, but man, it sure is wide, and it can get very deep. The other thing to be careful of, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. So all this footing in here, I guess you can kind of see it better over there. This flat rock, y'all, this stuff is slicker than shit. So it's got that slimy algae that grows on it, and it's a flat thing, so you really got to be careful. So try to stick to gravel areas if you can, because that's going to give you a bit more traction. I'm going to go be careful, and then Camelback's going to go be careful, because we may end up getting a bath. But in all honesty, we need a bath. So Camelback is in the area that is the deepest. It just got maybe right a little bit above my knees. But as you're crossing any rock, it's this like flat rock shelf here. So any places that have a little bit of a slope, you want to avoid because it is slippery. But I didn't have any problems crossing that stuff just as long as it was flat. And then there was one place that was sloped a little bit, and my foot, it slid right down, but I caught myself and I didn't fall or anything. All good?
All good.
All right, so this crossing is done, and again, this is one of those crossings that can get really bad when there's been a lot of rain. In fact, this is the worst one. So There is a bypass for it, which is good, but there's some others, and like I said before, I'm going to put those in the video description, a list of which ones you're going to need to watch out for. But other than that, we're across it now, so if rain comes, you don't have to worry about this one being a problem. The next ones on our list that could be a problem are the Mulberry, Indian Creek, and Frog Bayou. But last I heard from Yancey, the guy who gave us a shuttle here, I messaged him on the inReach, and he said that the forecast is now changed, that now it's showing Sunday for rain, and it's not going to be a whole lot of any severe stuff. So that makes me feel good. And then we talked to another gentleman on the way here today. We hiked past them, and so he said that Frog Bayou takes a lot of rain for it to come up. So that's all reassuring stuff, because I was starting to think that this through hike may not be able to be finished because of the rivers and creeks coming up, but so far so good. All right, okay, now I'm gonna go hike. Bye. Okay, we have been climbing for what feels like forever, and I think we're pretty close to the top of this thing, but knowing the OHT, it's gonna route us up that, because so far that's how it seems to be. But I wanted to show you that we've got to where the high water bypass comes out. So here is the high water bypass at the top of this hill. So there's also a nice campsite up here. It's got good flat level areas, looks like, to put a few tents, some decent trees for hammocking. Anyway, that is the high water bypass. And again, like I had mentioned, when we were getting ready to start the first crossing or westbound direction, these are gonna be in blue blazes. White blaze up there means it's us, that way. It's just right around 1 o'clock and a little bit before 1, and we are almost to the halfway point on our 20-mile day. So we're making really good time, even with some places where we kind of lost the trail, kind of just disappeared on us, and it gets to a point you can't figure out where to go just because of how the terrain is and the rocks and everything. But you look around and there's no blaze that tells you we'll head this way. So there's a couple times we kind of had to fish around up there. Okay, and with that, I'm now gonna hike. It's weird coming out here. And yeah, you expect you're gonna meet some people on the trail, especially when you're hiking westbound against the grain. So all the regular people who are doing eastbound, I get to meet them all. I ran into 3 people, 2 ladies and a guy, and one of them turned out to be a wonderful lady named Karen, who's a trail angel on the Washita Trail. I've chit-chatted with her through Facebook and Messenger, but I've never actually met her in person, and it was her. So I was super excited to get a chance to meet her in person. So that kind of made my day. So Karen, if you're watching this, you made my day. That was really cool. All right, score. There's Big Piney. There's a bridge. You don't have to cross the actual wet crossing. When we turned onto the bridge, there's no blaze that's saying to cross it. So you do cross it. Go this way. And if you're on the eastbound, come from over there. And then once you get off the bridge, turn to your left. I tell you, this place has the widest creeks I've ever seen. This is the old Fort Douglas schoolhouse, and it's pretty cool. Love the craftsman style front porch and the really cool fieldstone work. I mean, this is awesome. There is a video by Miss Jane Thorne, who is super knowledgeable about this area, and she did a video. She actually went into the schoolhouse and looked around and then talked about its history. So I am going to link that in the video description below. Okay, and now, boop, back on the OHT. Looky there, less than 100 miles to go. Woo! Look at these beautiful pine trees.
Uh-huh.
They're so gorgeous. We worked for it, didn't we? Yo, these pines are just so beautiful. And just when you didn't think it could get any better, I think that's a dogwood blooming over there. Gosh, this is just gorgeous. This is a perfect end to a long day. I love it. Welcome to the 20 Club. Camelback just did her first 20-mile day. Well, a little bit over 20 miles. How do you feel?
Tired.
What are you going to do next?
Sit down.
Oh, you're not going to go to Disneyland? So we have this beautiful campsite here. Everybody says it's the most beautiful campsite on the whole trail. It's the most beautiful one I've seen yet. I'll show you why. Look at this place. Isn't this freaking beautiful? I was so excited to show y'all. I haven't even taken my pack off yet. Oh my God, look at this. It is absolutely stunning. Look at this giant emerald pool. It's so gorgeous.